one NFL DFS season over here at DFS Army. I used to host this over at Win Daily Sports. And honestly, this is the first show I've done for NFL outside of my home at Win Daily Sports, I believe since 2018. So I just wanted to give everybody a thank you for all the support over the years over there. A shout out to everybody who was a member over there, now a member at DFS Army, which is a massive community. Seeing the Discord at DFS Army just every day, multiple different sports these guys are crushing. I'm sure if you're a first-time subscriber at DFS Army, like you've seen these guys icons all over the DFS leaderboards over the years. I remember during COVID, started playing NASCAR DFS, and every fucking time it was like guys from DFS Army. So shout out to everybody at DFS Army for one, welcoming me with open arms here to bring the First and Six podcast over there. But just wanted to take a quick moment to thank everybody, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some people too. So if I do, I'm very sorry. But everybody at Win Daily over the years, like the subs, a lot of you have become very close friends, like my boy Joe DeSanto out east. One of my biggest personal supporters always texts me about my family, friends, lineups. Like it's not just DFS, like it became a family at Win Daily, and that is something that I will forever be grateful for. Sorry to start this podcast with a fucking boring sappy spot, but I would not be here at DFS Army doing this show today without all of the support from Dave Glockner, my boy David Jones, who's a sicko. Sia Najad, could not say enough about Sia. You'll probably see him on CBS. The guy's an absolute legend, just skyrocketed through this industry, and for good reason. One of the most talented on and off air presences that I have ever come across in this industry and just sports as a whole. One of the most genuine, nicest dudes you'll ever meet, and he's handsome. So if you guys don't know Sia Najad, go look him up. It's probably the most beautiful headshot you'll ever see in sports media. Joel Schreck, one of the better DFS players I've ever met. Stephen Pilardi, the guy that completely changed my PGA DFS game. The most accurate ownership projections that I have ever seen. Would not be where I am today, just in general, without his projections and all the help, his risky biscuits, everything for PGA DFS. Steve Pilardi was a huge help. Jared Levitt, Joe DiCarlo, my Bolser Aguiar. Spencer is, special place in my heart, started the Better Golf podcast with me, which we hope to get rolling again soon this spring. Just on a personal note, in February, my wife and I welcomed our first child. He was a little premature, I think 5 or 6 weeks, but kicking ass now. Everybody's good. There was, not like it was like a scary thing or anything like that, but just kind of took my mind off of PGA DFS this spring to welcome in our first child, and just a lot of work, not fucking sleeping much. It's getting better now, as you parents out there probably know. So we're at 6 months, 6.5, 7 months, give or take, starting to sleep a little bit more. And then last but not least, my boy Ghost, Nicky D. Tommaso, my Canadian fellow that really did everything for me at Win Daily in terms of like data projections, helping me pull information to make the 80 model is what it is today, with all the projections for, receptions, yardage, all that good stuff. Really stepped up my DFS game, and randomly getting bored on a winter night and asking him who the locks are in NBA. I fucking hate NBA DFS, but Ghost made it somewhat entertaining for me. I think I did win some money once, but I'm sure I'm absolutely a negative player in NBA. But most of all, Jason Mezrahi, the founder of Win Daily, he is probably the guy that's in my corner the most in terms of this DFS space. Gave me a chance back in 2018 or 2019, whatever it was, to start writing cash games articles at Win Daily Sports. And then David and Javi were doing the show, the Sunday live stream, and I had to fill in once. It was probably David, who was fucking hungover or something, couldn't make it. And ever since then, my following on Twitter, how much I push myself to be good at this job and give you guys good information. I hope I do a good job for that. Jason gave me the chance to do that Sunday live stream, and I have been doing that for the last 5 years. I will really miss that this Sunday, every Sunday moving forward. That was Ghost and I's, David and I's show for a while, then Ghost and I, Javi and I, it was awesome having everybody as a special guest on the Sunday show, getting Jason on the Sunday show. I could do an hour-long podcast of how grateful I am to Jason and everybody at Win Daily. But Jason's the nicest dude you'll ever meet. He sacrificed so much of his personal time, his personal life. He's got kids of his own. Like the amount of times that we'd talk at 11 o'clock Central PM, midnight his time, to where we're just like going through a slate, figuring out what we're going to say on the Sirius XM show, figuring out in the off season, how can we make a better product in the NFL space to the subscribers we still have, all of that. Like, no one works harder than that guy, you know. And there were times that I was a lazy piece of shit and he'd call me out on it. And like, it just made me a better person, made me a better employee, made me a better DFS player, everything about Jason. Love the guy, you know, would take a bullet for him. So just want to thank him for how much of his personal life that he sacrificed to kind of help me really grow my brand. I would not be here without him. Arguing about Nicole Hardman, who I still think, you know, well, 2-time Super Bowl winner. And inventing Nico Collins, I think that's one of the things I'm more proud of with Jason, is back in the day when he was graduating Michigan, we saw the opportunity potential arise at Houston. Now Nico Collins is a fucking first-round pick in fantasy football. Tune into XM87 on Sunday nights to support my boys, Jason Mezrahi and David Jones, on the Win Daily Show. But without further ado, let's get into the Week 1 slate. I have the Domination Station pulled up here at DFS Army. We got all the games here. I think I'm going to go game by game and then maybe do a quick highlight of like guys that I'm actually playing. The purpose of the show is just to give you as much information as I can. I usually go through all the coverages and like who's got, you know, an upgrade against cover 3 if we're playing a team that plays a ton of cover 3 and one, you know, single high safety. Not going to go over a ton of that this week just because, you know, a lot of the defensive coordinators are the same. It's going to be the same systems for a lot of these teams, but there are a lot of changes too. I just don't want to give you bad information. And at the end of the day, it's like stuff like that does matter in DFS. I think that is what has separated me as a player, is not going with the grain, but finding different, you know, mathematical and data-backed choices. But look for that more in week 2, maybe week 3 and 4. I just want the data to mature a little bit. But having said that, I think we'll still cruise through this with a lot of good information. Let's start with the first game. Here at the Domination Station, we have the Raiders traveling to New England. Total of 43.5 points. That is one of the lower ones. Obviously, you'll see here 38 total for Pittsburgh at the Jets. But let's go through the actual players on this. How do I do that? I just want those two. There we go. Sorry about that. All right, let's start the QB position. Drake May and Geno Smith. Ownership's pretty low for both. Drake May, 5% right now. I think he's going to be a little bit higher for those looking to pay down at quarterback. Obviously, the dual threat capabilities of Drake May is going to be important. I think he's a safe cash game play, and I will have a cheat sheet out at DFS Army. And just like that, I'm not in midseason form. Let's talk about a couple changes for these teams. So obviously the Raiders head coach, Pete Carroll, 70-year-old dude, great motivator. Very interested to see how they played this year under him. And bringing Chip Kelly back to the NFL is going to be very interesting as well. So on the defensive side of things, here are my notes kind of for the offseason, which helped me in like my seasonal drafts. Brought in a lot of help to a bad defense. I got Jamal Adams now, Jeremy Chin, Devin White, Jalen Smith. They did lose Kavon Chason, however you say that. Yeah, Kayvon Chason. And Nate Hobbs to the Packers. But Chason just went to the other side of the stadium here and is playing for the Patriots on Sunday for week 1. And then their safety, Trayvon Morig, went to the Panthers. I think that's probably the biggest hit. That dude's a stud, and the Panthers obviously value him a ton because they paid him a shit ton of money. So I do think this defense will still be one of the more subpar ones in the NFL, but it should be better than it was on offense. I'm interested to see the pace. Chip used to play very, very quickly. Obviously at Ohio State last year, fantastic season, played a lot slower. I think this offense is going to be built around the run with Ashton Genty and just killing time of possession. I think the Patriots, unfortunately, are probably going to play the same way. So that total of 43 does make a lot of sense for me, maybe a little high, but both of these defenses are pretty beatable. And we do have some explosive players on offense that we'll get at. For the Patriots, you know, actually all 2 of these coaching staffs just completely revamped. Mike Vrabel coming back, hired Josh McDaniels as the offensive coordinator, which is pretty interesting. I do think we'll see like a ton of RPO with Drake May, which is probably a great thing for him. Another reason why I do think that he's cash game viable and certainly tournament viable too. Anybody that can run for 40 yards and a touchdown at the quarterback position is going to be valuable in DFS. I do think with this RPO and kind of pre-snap motion, I think this is where they'll really attack the middle of the field. So I wanted to say this is good for Demario Douglas. I had to draft him in a 18-team guillotine league if you guys are into that. But Stephon Diggs is going to move all over the formation. He's going to be the wide receiver 1 here. I know he's on the wrong side of 30, but sounds like he is 100% healthy, good to go. Really excited to see him, and I'm sure we'll get a lot of, middle of the field stuff to Hunter Henry. McDaniels always seemed to be very good at getting the tight end involved, and that should be a good safety blanket for Drake May. Should be a slower pace of play, just like the Raiders, unless Chip the Rip brings back some up-tempo, no-huddle offense. On the injury side of thing, it's week 1. Christian Gonzalez is not looking like he is going to go for the Patriots. That severely hurts their secondary. He's one of the better corners in the AFC. Stephon Diggs, we said good to go. Other than that, the Raiders situation looks pretty clean. I personally do not have a ton of interest in this game. Drake May, I talked about, cash viable. I have no interest in playing Geno. And one thing for me, my player pool is very condensed. So I don't want to tell you not to play these guys. I'm just giving you my player pool, what I'm doing. You take that for what it's worth. Running back, I do think Ashton Genty is probably one of the safer bets to get 20-plus touches on this slate. Travion Henderson, like Ramondre Stevenson didn't die. I'm interested to see that situation, that split for that. It looks like the public's not going to be very high on them with ownership of sub 5% for Travion. No one playing Ramondre Stevenson. Obviously, we're not touching any of these fucking dudes down here. So Ashton Genty at 7,000. Let's see what other running backs are priced right around him. Like McCaffrey, only 300 more. I'm sure the field is going to be very heavy on Christian McCaffrey, especially at that price. And it looks like sportsbooks do have a lot of respect for Christian McCaffrey. His all-purpose yards is close to like 120, which is what we used to see it at. So Devon Achane, I don't know what the public's going to do there. I personally I know Genty's going to be a sexy thing and going to get a ton of work. I just don't know if this is a matchup I want to really go crazy in at 7,000. I think if Genty has like a 75-yard, 85-yard rushing game, we do see this price maybe go down a little bit in weeks. So I don't necessarily think he's overpriced, but I don't know. I'd probably rather have Jonathan Taylor at 6,800. Chase Brown is going to be probably the highest owned running back on the slate. So, yeah, for me, it's just like I can't play everybody. Probably not going to play a ton of Genty. Wide receivers, Stephon Diggs, going to be right around 10%. I think it's fine. I'm, again, not super interested in this game, but 5,300 Stephon Diggs, I'm not going to talk you off it. Jacoby Myers demanded a trade, but he's going to play at 5,100. Don't think I'm interested in him. Amari Cooper coming back to Vegas. Again, just not super interested in this game, so not going to dive a ton into it. If you want to pay for Brock Bowers, 6,500 is a fair price. Ownership is not there. I mean, if there's any tight end other than probably Trey McBride that's going to get 8 catches, it's probably Brock Bowers. Don't hate Hunter Henry, 2% for 3,900. That's a fucking great price. So if you're interested in stacking this game and playing GPPs around it, I definitely think like Bowers is obviously in play. I don't need to say that. Hunter Henry is very interesting. He will be in my player pool if I'm punting tight end. I don't think I'm punting tight end, but on a couple, like I already hand billed, I think 150 by August 11th for that $5 milli. He's certainly going to be in probably 15 of those, I'm sure. Stephon Diggs, Drake May stacks to go ahead. Just like the bring back, if I'm doing like a 3-2 stack, it's going to be Genty and Brock Bowers. I don't think I'm very interested in Jacoby Myers when there's guys cheaper than him, like Michael Pittman or Emeka Buka, that I think have much higher ceilings at cheaper prices in better game environments as well. Moving on to Steelers and the Jets. I don't think I need to talk about this one a ton. Let's talk about the teams. I'll move my thing there. So Mike Tomlin, Art Smith, same guys as last year, pretty much calling the offense and defense side of things. Interested to see how Art Smith handles Aaron Rodgers. That will be very cool for me to watch. But great defense for the Steelers. Obviously, they have Jalen Ramsey coming in, losing Minkah Fitzpatrick. It is what it is. But Brandon Echols, Darius Slay, like they are clearly, to me, it looks like they're going to play a ton of press man with those guys. Like those are a lot of good one-on-one cover corners. So it should be interesting offense. I don't know what necessarily to expect. Like DK Metcalf, I think could either be a league winner or he kind of just disappears. It's going to be very interesting to see how he handles Aaron Rodgers and vice versa. Not interested in this game with a total of 38. On the Jets, Aaron Glenn, now the head coach there, defensive coordinator from the Lions for the past couple of years. Tanner Engstrand, who was a pass game coordinator with the Lions, so a Ben Johnson disciple. My notes here on the defense should be a solid defense. I mean, that's kind of what we usually expect for the Jets. I added Derek Nandi and Brandon Stevens from the Ravens, which should really help that secondary. So it's not just, who's the fucking guy that I'm thinking of? Who's it? Sauce Gardner, right? So that helps Brandon Stevens on the other side. They did lose Kinlaw, Solomon Thomas, CJ Mosley, Brendan Eccles, Jalen Mills, and DJ Reed. So definitely a lot going on in that back half of the defense there. On the injury side of things here for the Jets, it sounds like, their stud guard, Elijah Vera Tucker, towards tricep, so he's going to be out for the year. And for the Steelers, who just have a monster defense as is, their first-round pick, Derek Harmon, is going to miss this game. I think he's going to be out for a couple weeks, but go through the player pool. No one's going to play Justin Fields. 5,400 for a guy that runs. You could always do it. Again, just a very slow game environment expected here, even though Art Smith historically does play quick. So that'll be interesting. I'm not playing Aaron Rodgers. I like both defenses here. I should say that, I guess. Breece Hall, I want to play a shit ton of them, but we have no discount. 6,400, especially like if you're looking at ADP and stuff, which a lot of the ownership for week one is probably going to be similar guys that you saw flying up the draft boards this year, probably are the first clicks that people want to do in DFS week one. I'm going to put Breece Hall in like a GPP category for sure at 1%, a dude that can catch 5-6 passes. And we don't know if Braylon Allen's going to take all the goal line work. It's rumored, but Breece Hall was a first-round pick last year. So for everybody just to turn their back on him, like this is where you could buy back in. Certainly, like it would not surprise me if Breece Hall's in a Millie Maker winning lineup. I'm not saying that he will be, but for 1%, Breece Hall right around the chalk of Chase Brown for 6,600 or going down to lower chalk at like 6,100 James Conner. Breece Hall's just sitting there and will be the forgotten man. Don't love it, but the GPP like risk taker in me is interested. Wide receivers, great price for Garrett Wilson, but not a game environment I really want to mess with. DK Metcalf, I always play DK Metcalf in the 5K range. It doesn't happen often. But yeah, probably going to wait and see how that rapport with Rodgers goes. And again, the total is 38. Tight ends, not really fucking interested in anybody. Jonnu Smith going to the Steelers will be interesting. Pat Freiermuth, obviously there too. But yeah, not doing any of that. Defenses, you're paying a good bit for the Steelers. The Jets are at 2,800. I think all of which are fair. Rodgers doesn't necessarily turn it over often historically, but the guy's getting fucking old and has not played very well. So I'm okay with the Jets defense at home for 2,800. Moving to the next game. This one's going to have a ton of ownership. We got the Falcons the Falcons hosting the Bucs, a total of 47 points. Looks like the Bucs are a 2-point road favorite, huh? That's interesting. All right. Let's go into the team breakdowns here. The Bucs obviously lose Liam Cohen as their offensive coordinator. He is now the head coach of the Jaguars. So we'll see. Josh Grizzard, who is a Mike McDaniel disciple, was with the Miami Dolphins here for a while and was a pass game coordinator of Tampa Bay. So he obviously learned under Liam Cohen too. So I don't think we'll see a ton of changes in this offense. It should be a slow pace, probably see a lot of running back exposure in the pass game, just like we saw last year. But some very notable departures on what was a pretty good defense. Definitely a defense that I think got a lot of sacks. Obviously, Todd Bowles is going to bring pressure all the time, gets a lot of turnovers, but Shaq Barrett gone, one of my favorite players to watch over the past couple of years. Willie Golston's gone. Tavir Thomas, however you say his name, out. Troy Hill out. Mike Edwards gone. Ryan Neal gone. Jordan Whitehead gone. But they did bring in some muscle with Hassan Reddick, Levante David. The cornerback position is going to be tough. I think the guys now, like Bryce Hall is going to be starting. Kendall Vildor is going to be starting. That is very interesting. So, I know a lot of people are going to love Drake London. I feel like this is just a great spot for Drake London too. On the injury side, Chris Godwin's obviously going to be out for quite some time. Jalen McMillan's on the IR. Tristan Wirfs for that offensive line for Tampa Bay is likely out, it sounds like. So that is troublesome. I don't like the Bucs being a 2-point favorite here. I think I'll lean with Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson. I really like Raheem Morris overall from a defensive mindset. Zach Robinson, obviously from the McVay tree. This offense did move pretty well all year long, even with Kirk Cousins kind of shit in the bed, getting injured. And when Michael Penix came in, like they still scored points. So I like the home team here getting points on the road. This is not betting advice. I'll just, again, let you know kind of where I'm leaning. And Vita Vea is questionable for the Bucs. I'm sorry, I'm talking in fucking circles here, guys. If it's tough for you to follow, please let me know. Give all the feedback you possibly want to. I welcome it. But for the Falcons, offense and defense looks pretty clean injury-wise. Defense for the Falcons, I think they're going to be sneaky good here. Bringing Leonard Floyd, Morgan Fox, Divine Diablo. Wish Grady Jarrett, who's just an absolute wreaks havoc in the run game, but now he's with the Chicago Bears, so that'll be fun to see. But Grady Jarrett is gone, and Justin Simmons, the safety, is gone. I guess Matthew Judon is a notable exit if you guys think he's still got game left. But yeah, I like the Falcons defense this year a good bit, especially at home. And if Tristan Wirf's out, like that Bucs line is very beatable. Ownership for the quarterbacks here, very low. I don't think I like any of them. Baker Mayfield at 6,600. No thanks. I'm not interested in paying that much for a guy that doesn't run, and I don't think the pass volume will be crazy. I think they're going to play pretty slow. I think the Falcons play a little bit more up-tempo, but Michael Penix doesn't run. 5,600, like you probably just go down to 55 or whatever Drake May was, or 54 for Justin Fields. In that same range, I think they have a higher range of outcomes of beating Michael Penix. Bijan Robinson, 10% owned, is probably my favorite. One of my favorite plays on the slate for tournaments. I don't think we need to pay $8,000 for Bijan in cash, especially if Christian McCaffrey, we'll get to the ownership in that game soon, is going to be like in the 20% range. Just take Christian McCaffrey in cash. But Bijan and Drake London, I am extremely interested in. I have no interest in Bucky Irving or Rachaad White this week. 13% of the field projected to be on Bucky Irving. I'm not paying $7,100 for him with Liam Cohen gone. I know I say Grizzard is kind of like a very similar guy, but I don't know, like him spending that much time with McDaniel should be a ton of pre-snap motion for the Falcons. I think it's going to be a different offense, and I'm not paying a premium for Bucky Irving. He's not $900 less than Bijan Robinson. Like that's just not where the skill set is. Bijan's going to get 20 plus touches. He's my favorite running back play on the slate. Wide receiver, I don't know. Mike Evans probably just gets 80 and a score like he does every single game, which is fine. Low ownership. If you want to stack this game up, I won't talk you off of it, but I do think the Bucs are going to play pretty slow. Drake London, one of the chalk pieces that I absolutely love. I think my builds this week are either going to have Drake London and maybe just solo Drake London because I don't necessarily want to force myself to have a buck. But, dude, Emeka Egbuka, a rookie, pushing 20% ownership. And that's kind of what I was talking about. These guys that are flying up ADP, obviously Egbuka's doing that, are going to be fan favorites. I would love to say something wrong about Emeka Egbuka, but I do think he's a stud. I do like the McDaniel background in Grizzard because I do think we will see a lot of pre-snap motion, which is going to be Egbuka. I don't think we're going to see Mike Evans in motion often. He'll probably just be the X sitting out there. You know, a guy they look for on third down, but Egbuka should have a ton of run. And I saw that his receiving prop is like pushing 58 yards. So comparing that to other guys in the price range of wide receivers, like 58 yards, like T. Higgins, I think, is in the low 60s. Garrett Wilson's like 58. McLaurin's like 52. I don't remember what Devontae was, probably in the upper 50s. So like they really respect Emeka Egbuka from a sportsbook standpoint. So for 4,600 to be similar in props to these guys, probably more in terms of receiving yards than Deebo Samuel, but obviously Deebo can run. Yeah, I will not talk you off Egbuka. I don't know if he's going to be a cash play for me, but I do like a little 1-and-1 back and forth of this game. So I do have a ton of lines with Bijan as my Falcon and Emeka on the other side, or Drake London and Emeka on the other side, or just Drake London by himself, or Bijan. And like I talked about, the Falcons D, I do think at home could be pretty sneaky. Tight ends, Kyle Pitts. I don't know. We got to say, I mean, we say it every fucking year, but it's got to be now or never for Kyle Pitts, right? But yeah, not interested much in the tight end space unless you're stacking this game like 3-2 or whatever and doing an optimizer, then sure, get some exposure to Kyle Pitts. Dolphins at the Colts, total of 46.5. I don't know. I feel like I lean the under there. Dolphins brought back Minka Fitzpatrick. Obviously, he come back from the Steelers. They lost Javon Holland, Jalen Ramsey, Calais Campbell, Kendall Fuller, and Jordan Poyer. So that defense is fucking dead. I do not have many acquisitions on the other side there to kind of offset losing all those guys. The Colts, only a half-point favorite. I've heard a ton of people on XM Radio say they're like very heavy on the Dolphins. I would lean the Colts, but this is a stay away for me. I do lean the under. We got Shane Steichen still coaching the Colts. Jim Bob Cooter obviously over there. They brought in Charvarius Ward and Cam Bynum, so that secondary should be decent. I want to say Kenny Moore is still on the team, right? The slot corner. I think so. I don't know. I should have wrote that down. Daniel Jones named the starter. So I don't know. I think that helps the Colts move the ball offensively through the air, at least. Obviously, Anthony Richardson was kind of a a disaster in terms of like projecting fantasy outputs, but I think Daniel Jones will be a good game manager. This offense is going to be built around getting the ball to Jonathan Taylor. And, I don't know, Daniel Jones has made some wide receivers be quality fantasy players. So we'll talk about them in a bit. Injury side, Jalen Wright's going to be out. Achan's good to go, it sounds like. And for the Colts, it looks pretty clean. So the Colts did lose Ryan Kelly, which on paper seems like a big miss, but that dude has not played many games the past 2 years. He's over at the Vikings now, I think. I should have wrote that down. I don't have that in my spreadsheet, but yeah. Continuing on, let's go through the players. Tua, 1%. Like, you obviously know where the targets are going to now that Jonnu Smith's gone. Like, Tyreek is going to be insanely involved. Jalen Waddle, everybody's projecting a big year for. So if you want to double stack Tua with Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, I think that's a great idea. If you do think this game shoots out and goes over that total of 46.5, Miami's defense is not going to stop anybody. So they're going to be passing a lot. It's just, can Daniel Jones be competent? I don't know. 7%? Daniel Jones is higher owned than Drake May. I'm fucking out on Daniel Jones. I would rather go Tua, Waddle, Tyreek together and then run it back with Jonathan Taylor and my boy Michael Pittman. I like a lot. My projection model likes him. Achan projected for 22% ownership. I don't think that's, no way. I'll bet the under on that. Jonathan Taylor, I think, is a fantastic play in this 10 to 15% range at only 6,800. I know we're not going to get a lot of checkdowns to Jonathan Taylor in the Jim Bob Cooter system, but goal line work's going to be him. I don't think Daniel Jones is going to take goal line carries like Anthony Richardson used to do a little bit. So great spot for Jonathan Taylor. One of my favorite plays at the running back position in that mid-tier range, which I think we talked about with Genty, right? Like, he is my, I love Genty, but yeah, I'd rather have Jonathan Taylor than Achan, Jacobs. I'll say it fucking right now. I'd rather have him than Chase Brown. So I think Chase Brown's ownership is going to be crazy high. But yeah, I like Taylor a ton. And wide receivers, 6% Tyreek. This dude's playing for a contract. Obviously has a ton of shit going on. I don't know if this is a week I'm going to do it. I do think this 3-2 stack fits up great with Tua and them. And you're paying, what was Tua, 6,100? Oh, 58. So that's a great price. Tua can certainly throw for 303 in this matchup. I do think the Colts secondary is going to be better, but Tyreek Hill's still Tyreek Hill. Waddle's healthy, 57, like that. It's a good way to go. Michael Pittman, 1% ownership, 4,900. If they're like, they get in the red zone a lot, which I think they should. Miami's defense is a fucking disaster. We already covered that. As long as it's not like on the goal line, if we get like 3rd and 3 from the 4 inside the green zone there, like, Michael Pittman is a touchdown man, big body dude. I do think we can, as long as Miami can keep pace, we could see Pittman have a really good game here. 7 for like 65, 70 and a touch at 4,900 would be awesome. And 1% certainly interested in that. No interest in the tight ends. I mean, Tyler Warren, I guess, is interesting. I shouldn't say that. I forgot he's on the team before doing this. But yeah, Tyler Warren, I thought it's a fucking stud in college. I'm sure you guys did too. If you watch the same game film, he kind of does everything. I'm interested to see his role. Daniel Jones did a decent job getting the tight end involved in New York. So Tyler Warren's probably the best tight end he's ever had to work with. So yeah, if you want to, instead of Pittman and Taylor, and you want to stack this game back, go Warren and Taylor. That's interesting too. So I'm interested to see if Tyler Warren gets a lot of red zone looks or if that stays with Pittman. So yeah, I am interested in Tyler Warren, I should say. And defense, I would not touch Miami, but I'm interested with Colts and a Jonathan Taylor on the other side. That correlation there that everybody talks about in DFS, I don't think you need it, but makes sense to me. I do like the Colts defense now with those offseason acquisitions. The Saints have a team total of 18.5. I guess it's right by the Jets and the Titans. That's bad. Total of 43.5. Ugh. Let's go through this one. Probably a game I'm not super interested in. For the Cardinals, here's my notes. Didn't do anything different on offense. They, get Will Hernandez back on the offensive line. That's going to be huge. But their defensive lineman, Walter Nolan, first-round pick, is on the PUP list, it looks like. So they made a clear, conscious decision to bolster up that defensive line. They signed Calais Campbell, who we just talked about, leaving the Dolphins, Josh Sweat, Dalvin Tomlinson. and obviously drafting Walter Nolan. So they are going to be a difficult defense to run against once Walter Nolan's back, and they're probably going to create a lot of pressure on opposing quarterbacks, especially again when Walter Nolan's back. Spencer Rattler, damn near the stone man at quarterback. No ownership on either of these guys. I don't think this is a spot where I do want to play Kyler. I think he's cash viable. That 18 to 20 point range, we usually look for like 2.7 to 3x in cash. I think Kyler certainly fits that mold if you don't want to pay up for Jaden Daniels in cash games. But Rattler, I'm not interested in. Alvin Kamara, not really interested in. I don't think, with Kellen Moore now as the Saints head coach and probably calling the plays. I know Doug Nussmeier is the new offensive coordinator, but I don't know. Every time Kellen Moore takes over an offense, it is usually great for the tight end. So good for Juwan Johnson and not nearly as good for running backs because he does not check down much. I know Saquon had a very low receiving yard or reception total last year, and Kellen Moore kind of just does that. Kellen Moore kind of killed Austin Eckler's sex appeal a couple of years ago, and I kind of noted that in the offseason at Win Daily. Is like all these people that want to draft Eckler in the first round, like those targets are going to go down because that's what Kellen Moore does. So I don't hate Alvin Kamara. It's a safe price, but I don't know. Like we're going to see more Kendre Miller. If this game gets out of hand, I just don't think I really need to invest in Alvin Kamara. James Conner's going to be very popular at 6,100. He's been very vocal himself saying that Trey's going to get involved. So I don't hate James Conner. I think it's fine for cash. Obviously a great pairing with the Cardinals defense and James Conner, but it's a good price even if he is split in time. So I don't know. I'm indifferent about that one. I think there's other guys you could use in this area. James Conner, I prefer James Conner over Breece Hall still, even though I did say Breece Hall's got GPP appeal. Chuba Hubbard, probably a better play in tournaments than James Conner. Kenneth Walker, I always love, especially with Kubiak there. So, yeah, there's options around James Conner. I don't think he's a key piece in any lineup for me this week, but I will have pairings of him with the Cardinals defense. On the receiver side of the conversation here, Marvin Harrison, 5,500. I love him this year. I think it's just talent is going to win. He's going to be a stud eventually. At 5,500, I don't think we need a back and forth game for him to get 20 points. So he can just, simply do that just on this offense, scoring, 25 plus points, which their team totals at right now. So if he was priced like 6,500, I wouldn't be interested in Marvin Harrison because I would want a back and forth game environment, which I don't think this one possesses just due to Spencer Rattler and the Saints clearly like looking to tank, it looks like. So I don't know. Marvin Harrison, not a core play for me, but I do like him at that price because I do think he's a safe bet to get 18 plus points in this matchup. There is no one in the secondary for the Saints. They did pay Justin Reed a ton of money to come in from Kansas City, but yeah, losing Will Harris, Paulson Adebo, Tyrann Mathieu retired. So I don't know. No one can contain Marvin Harrison on that secondary. So I do like him to get, 6 catches, 85 yards and a touchdown should get us right around that 20-point range, which gets us well more than 3x. So he is a GPP play for sure. Chris Olave, before he gets concussed this year, like you might as well play him. I'm cool with that. I don't think the secondary for the Cardinals is their sweet spot. It's going to be that defensive line, but Spencer Rattler is going to be a factor in Chris Olave being successful or not. But for 5,100, and if we do think the Cardinals beat the brakes off of them, Olave should have 10 plus targets in this matchup. Rashid Shaheed, I've never got him right, but he can always go 80 yards to the house. So for 1.6% ownership in what should be a negative game script for the Saints, what I mean by that is trailing points and having to throw a lot. And Kellen Moore likes to throw in general. So it's not like these guys are out there trying to lose. They're going to try to compete. So we should see a ton of targets through Olave and Rashid Shaheed. A sneaky play, I think 2% Juwan Johnson. Looking at the data that I've collected with Kellen Moore, does get a big boost to tight end target share. Juwan Johnson, we know, is a very talented player. So a good negative game script punt play at tight end. I know Hunter Henry at 3,900, I had a little bit of interest in. I would prefer, if I'm punting tight end, to go to Juwan Johnson at 33. So if you want to go like James Conner, saying the game script that the Cardinals do whatever they want on offense, Conner gets, 1 or 2 touchdowns, 85 yards, and the Saints are just ripping it, in shotgun all day long. Juwan Johnson at 3,300. Fine play. Not touching the Saints defense. Cardinals defense, you got to pay up a lot, but it's a good spot. They're certainly going to be one of the better defensive teams in football this year. Moving on to the Giants and the Washington come a total of 45.5 points. And what is that? Washington favored by 6. So, yeah, I think that's fair. It's interesting that it's only 6. I feel like everybody would be on the public Washington side here, but the Giants defense, let's go through their team. They did make a lot of good additions here. Mike Kafka is going to be the offensive coordinator this year. Their defense much improved are my notes here. Obviously have the new pass rush superstar in Abdul Carter, and good additions. They got Paulson Adebo from the Saints, Javon Holland from Miami. So I do think that the secondary should be much improved, and the defensive line should be pretty filthy. So it's going to be an up-tempo offense with the bull. So, and, it's spread. They're going to be built around the pass, the running backs, what is it, Tyrone Tracy, Cam Scattaboo, Devin Singletary. Yeah, they have no run game, in my opinion. This is going to be built around the pass. I can't imagine that they do much to the ground at all. For the Commanders, same situation as last year, pretty much. It looks like, the offensive line got a boost with Laremy Tunsil, obviously brought in Debo, which is going to be huge. And, defensively, they brought in Javon Kinlaw, Will Harris, Jonathan Jones, Old Von Miller, and Bobby Wagner. That should offset. I don't think it's a much improved defense because they did lose Jeremy Chin, Dante Fowler, Jonathan Allen. So some key guys there that are leaving, but they did bring in a lot of help. Injury side of things, it looks like Andrew Thomas, the left tackle, who's a stud for the Giants, and their offensive line is trash, is highly questionable. So keep an eye on that. And Zach Ertz is questionable. Old Zach Ertz still going. And for the Saints, I forgot, good run blocker, Trevor Penning, highly questionable for that offensive line. So yeah, the Saints are a fucking disaster right now. So that's not surprising to anybody. I think everybody expected that. Going through the quarterbacks here, Jaden Daniels, probably the highest owned quarterback on the slate. Let's confirm that by the quarterback position. We'll sort by ownership. Yeah, Jaden Daniels, big time. So he's likely right now, very likely to be my cash game quarterback. And believe it or not, on the cheat sheet that will be on DFS Army shortly today, Russell Wilson is my GPP quarterback right now in my main lineup. So I again, they're going to pass a ton. I'm assuming Washington, even though New York does have a more improved defense, Washington's going to move the football like crazy. Cliff Kingsbury has done a very good job with this offense and bringing in Debo. Obviously, Terry reported back to camp, a week or two ago. This offense is going to be good. So we know Jaden Daniels could sling it and run. I think Washington, what's their team total? 25, so 26 pretty much, which is probably close to the highest on the slate. Second highest on the slate behind the Bengals. So yeah, Russell is obviously playing for a job. Jackson Dart lit up the preseason. So I'd plan on the narrative here. Russ, one, he's $5,000. You can afford the world if you're playing Russ. We know where the targets are going. They're going to Malik Neighbors, and we know Washington is going to score points. So going into the running back position, Tyrone Tracy, I think his owner, no one's going to play him. I have no interest in him. JCM, I thought would be very, very popular. That's Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, one of the guys like Emeka Ibuka that just continues to skyrocket in ADP in seasonal drafts. I thought at the Stoneman 4,000, his ownership will be higher. I think it will be. I think he'll be pushing 5%. But the guy I love this week and another pay down option is Austin Eckler. I do think I don't think Chris Rodriguez actually has the goal line role settled in. Austin Eckler has been awesome around the goal line, and I am a big anti Austin Eckler guy. So I usually play him in games where I think they'll be chasing points, but I don't think Washington's defense is that good here. And Austin Eckler at 4,800, I don't need that much. If he does luck box into being the goal line back, gets 3 catches for 18 yards, 20 yards, couple carries for 20 yards, 25 yards, 30 yards. If he gets a touchdown, he's getting that 15, 16 point range, which is right what I need for that to be successful in GPPs. And obviously paying 4,800 for Austin Eckler opens up a ton. Let's just build this real quick. Russell, this says a double up. I'm just using this as a reference, so not a double up lineup at all. Eckler, and I'm definitely going to use Neighbors if I'm using Russell Wilson. Yeah, average salary of 55. So let's just throw a defense in there. And actually, I know the Seahawks are going to be popular. I don't know. Green Bay's all fucked up on offense right now. Let's use the Lions. 6,100. Yeah, you can afford the fucking world if you want to use Russell. I'm not telling you to play Austin Eckler. I'm not telling you to play Russell Wilson. I'm just letting you know, these three guys are going to be in my main GPP lineup because I love what it gets me. I said I love Bijan. I'm sure we'll love Jamar Chase. Some other guys we're going to talk about. Getting different by getting all these studs that we know are going to get a ton of touches, I think is a great way. Like, we're not necessarily reinventing the wheel. We're playing studs, and we're doing that because Russell Wilson and I'm not advising you to play Austin Eckler, but like, that's my theory here is I do see a path where Austin Eckler gets 15 plus points, especially betting on Chris Rodriguez not being the goal line back and Ja'Cory Crossing-Merritt not being ready to handle a full workload. Eckler is the veteran in that offense. If this game's close, Eckler is going to be on the field a lot. Malik Neighbors, stud, going to be 15% owned. Love that. Debo, I love a ton too. I think that this is a really interesting acquisition for this team. I'd love to play Terry McLaurin at 6,200 too, but I think for 1,000 less, I think they have similar ceilings, especially, Debo could be one of the guys getting carries in the red zone. So, like, it's not going to be JCM and Chris Rodriguez show. Like, there's going to be Eckler and Debo involved. I love using both of them. Let's see what that does. Russ, Eckler. I don't know why I'm so married to putting him in the lineup. I don't think you need to do that, but Neighbors. Let's just use the Texans right now because they're chalking to help. 6,400 average salary. That's insane. Like, you could have hit the world if you're building around that. So good stuff there. No interest in Noah Brown, Wandell. Darius Slayton could certainly catch a moon ball from Russ, but I'm going around Malik Neighbors. He's one of the best route runners, best hands, just an absolute freak. Sorry, my nose is itching today. I'm getting some allergies with the weather change up here in Chicago. Tight end, Theo Johnson, 3,000. Just get Juwan Johnson. Theo Johnson's an absolute beast. I think he's like 6'8". So could see some red zone variants go his way. I'm not saying he's a bad play, but that's a milli maker only. If I'm punting tight end, I think right now I'm pretty settled on Juwan Johnson down there. No interest in Zach Ertz. But yeah, definitely a game that has back and forth ability with condensed target share. So I'm very interested in that. Moving on to the Panthers at the Jaguars. I'm assuming this game has a ton of ownership. Everybody loves Ted McMillan. Everybody loves Brian Thomas Jr. Let's talk about the systems here. Dave Cannell is still obviously the head coach of the Panthers. Brad Idzik, offensive coordinator still for the Jaguars. Obviously, Liam Cohen coming in and Grant Udisky, who was with the Jags last year. So it's going to be Liam Cohen's offense. For the Panthers on defense, looks like my notes here. Rebuilt defense on the defensive line. Patrick Jones, Tershawn Wharton's going there. Bobby Brown taking a big stance to stop the run, which over the past couple of years, everybody in DFS and seasonal, like you play your running backs against the Panthers. I think they're making a conscious effort to try to slow that down. And for the safety, fill a void a little bit in that secondary with Trayvon Morig, who we talked about leaving the Raiders there. So he's a stud. So they paid him a shit ton of money. I'm interested. I think the Panthers defense will be better. I still don't think it's good. Same offense as last year. So I do think the improved defense does help them from getting the shit kicked out of them all the time, but they're going to give up points. I do think on offense, they'll be able to score a little bit more. Obviously, Ted McMillan is a big acquisition. Both of these injury reports look pretty clean for both these teams. For the Jaguars, a solid defense, I guess, last year that could get some takeovers, but they got just blown up through the air and kind of quit halfway through the season. They did add Jordan Lewis from Dallas and Eric Murray from Houston, so some secondary help there. Let's see about the offense. Obviously, with Liam Cohen, it's going to be spread, a lot of motion, high activity to the running backs in the passing game. So I don't think we'll see a ton of deep passing, which to me is interesting for Brian Thomas Jr. Not a lot of changes on the offensive line. Brandon Sheriff, I just think didn't get re-signed, so he's a free agent right now, but decent veteran lineman. Trevor Lawrence, 15% owned. So it looks like the public is just going off of, like, they're obviously smart enough to know Liam Cohen's there and just betting that this offense turns around like that. And like, I would recommend him for cash for the ownership. I have no interest. I'd rather go to Jaden Daniels, pay up that way, or go to 6,400 for Kyler Murray. Let's see, like Jaden Daniels at 7K. That's still a fair price. Joe Burrow, I don't think we need in cash, especially if Chase Brown's going to get all the ownership. We'll probably just ride that in cash games. Back to quarterback here. Bo Nix, you could always play with how much he runs. Brock Purdy, Jawan Jennings is back. Yeah, in cash, I would rather have Drake May than Trevor Lawrence. So, yeah, I'm out on Trevor Lawrence in all formats of it. I hope that doesn't burn me. I think looking at my lineups now, my landmines is this game going off. I'm not going to be heavily exposed to Brian Thomas Jr. I'll probably play him in cash and let Lawrence kind of go the wayside there. But I'm obviously getting exposure to Trevor Lawrence by playing Brian Thomas Jr. Chuba Hubbard, no ownership, sub 5. That is insane. Yeah, I'd rather have Chuba Hubbard than James Conner, like we talked about earlier. So Chuba, like you could certainly stack this game a ton. Travis Etienne is a GPP play for me at 0% ownership. Liam Cohen, we know how much he likes to throw at the running backs. We got to see Trevor. Like, does Trevor like to check down after his read? So I don't know. I don't like betting that much on Jacksonville's offense the first week with a new system, and Trevor Lawrence hasn't been fucking good. So I don't know. That's wild to me. I think that this is a landmine. I would certainly wear it if I'm wrong, but I'm not doing that. I'm fine with Brian Thomas Jr. He's going to be very popular. Yeah. So people are stacking this game. They're going Trevor, Brian Thomas Jr., bringing it back with Ted McMillan. Ted McMillan's price is fantastic. And he's like in the upper 60s of receiving yard props. So books obviously respect a ton of him. I don't know what to do with Travis Hunter. I'm going to wait and see. So I'm not interested there. Leggett, I think, is a very interesting play if you do think this game shoots out. If you don't, which I don't think it does, I think the Jags are going to be very slow on offense and try to keep the pace going, like in their favor, which is playing slow. And yeah, I don't know. So if you think this game shoots out, Xavier Leggett's good play. Jalen Coker's out for quite some time, and I do believe in the talent of Xavier Leggett. But we know Bryce Young is going to his first look often, especially Bryce Young loves throwing the ball to the left. We kind of identified that last year at Win Daily when Adam Thielen was on the left side of the field. He would get targets. So I do think Ted McMillan's going to move all the way around the formations, of course. But when he's on the left and he's Bryce's first read, he's getting the football. So in cash, I don't know. Let's do a cash build here. I want to use Jaden. I don't know. I haven't built my cash game lineup yet, so I don't know if it's going to fit. Brian Thomas Jr. is probably where we're going to start. I would love to use Nico Collins too. Ted McMillan for 5,200 in those player props and that ownership. In cash, we kind of want to ride the ownership. So, yeah, that's a ton of ownership right there on those guys. I do believe we'll leave the cash game going right now. So that's where I'm at currently. Let's see how that looks as we go. Tight ends, I have no interest in Brenton Strange pushing 10% ownership. I know he's, a camp darling and whatnot. I don't care about just Javion Sanders. I do believe in his talent, but I don't like Bryce Young and this offense in general scheming to the tight end. I, again, would much rather have a 1% or 2% owned Juwan Johnson than Brenton Strange. Defense, I think I'm okay with both. Like, if you really need to punt, I'm okay with playing the Panthers here. They obviously improved a lot, and just betting that Trevor Lawrence isn't Baker Mayfield, which is what basically this ownership is telling us, is that everybody just thinks it's plug and play because it's Liam Cohen, and, we obviously know who to stack him with, and Brian Thomas. So I think you can get some insane leverage using the Panthers, but they are subject to getting the shit kicked out of them just because that's all we've ever seen the past couple of years. But Jags defense, certainly, I don't believe in Bryce Young either. So both these defenses are in play for me. We will move on to the next game, and we'll keep this cash game going a little bit as we go. We have the highest implied team total, the Bengals on the road against the Browns, total of 47.5. Both of these defenses, I think, will give up a ton of points. Let's go into that. Nothing changed for the Bengals. It's Zach Taylor and Dan Pitcher. And then the Browns, Kevin Stefanski brought in Tommy Rees to be his offensive coordinator. I think there's just still Stefanski's system that they're going to do. Injury reports look pretty clean. Let's see for the Bengals on the road. Same offensive situation we know. They did lose Trent Brown, who is a very good lineman, and they could not afford losses on the offensive line, but they did. So we'll see how that goes. For the Browns, my notes here are interested to see the pace they play at. Stefanski used to play pretty quick. I don't know if he can do that with this personnel. And Joe Flacco obviously being under center, but they did bring in some offensive line help, and Stefanski's always been very big around getting the offensive line, big outside zone type of guy too. So he needs good linemen that are athletic. Brought in Cornelius Lucas and Jackson Barton to help there. Yeah, so no one's playing Joe Flacco, which I don't think I am either. 4,900 is not bad. He honestly may drop back and throw it 45 times if the Bengals score at will. I think the Browns defense is good enough to keep this game relatively close to that 47 total. So I don't think this is a blow-up spot for Joe Flacco. Excuse me. But I do think we know where the targets are going. Should be Jerry Jeudy and David Njoku. Njoku's target share with Joe Flacco was fucking insane. So I like that a lot. Joe Burrow, sub 10%. Yeah, you're always good to go there, but we're paying a lot for him. I don't know if this is a game where Joe Burrow needs to throw it 40 times. So I'd rather see him like the mid sixes, and in a game against like the Ravens or someone that's going to score 30 points on him. Can the Browns score 30 points on him? You got to ask yourself that. Probably. The Bengals defense is pretty bad, but it's still Joe Flacco. Like, come on. Yeah, Chase Brown, 26% owned. No one is playing a Browns running back. I'm cool with that. So Chase Brown at that ownership, you are going in the cash game lineup. Let's throw in the defense again. Texans, I'm just assuming out of the chalk because they're studs, but they're on the road at LA. I don't know if I love that. So we'll figure it out. Receivers, Jamar Chase is probably the best play on the slate every single week. He is the best wide receiver in football by a wide margin. I would take him 10 times out of 10 over Justin Jefferson. The ownership's going to be there. I don't think he needs to be in cash game lines at A100. I do think that the secondary for the Browns is not bad. And Jamar Chase historically does not go nuts against these guys, but probably because they don't have to, because the Browns had trouble scoring for many, many years. T. Higgins at 6,400, 10% owned. That's fair. I think it's a good GPP play. I think Jamar Chase is a great GPP play. I would love to get as much exposure to Jamar as I can, but in lineups I can't. I'm probably going to play T. Higgins, and in tournaments I'm 100% fading Chase Brown. He's probably in some of my $5 Millie Maker hand builds, I'm sure, just going through that in July and August. But I'm not playing him in tournaments at all. I'll play him in cash, and in tournaments I'm using either Jamar Chase or T. Higgins because I do want exposure to the highest team total on the slate. That is my reasoning for that. I'm okay if I have a lineup that doesn't have any Bengal, but I will have a Brown then most likely because I do think the Bengals score like crazy, and I do think the Browns probably score like crazy too. So Jerry Jeudy, 6% owned, 5,400. I don't know. Cedric Tillman was a fucking beast last year with Flacco. My guy in this game, to be transparent, is going to be David Njoku. He's going to be pretty popular. 13% owned at the tight end position. That's got to be the highest. It is. So we're going to put Njoku in the cash game. I love him. His target share was insane with Joe Flacco. He's very affordable. This gets us some exposure. And obviously Chase Brown to that back and forth game there. That does have, I think, the highest total. Tied for the highest total the highest total on the slate. So yeah, having a piece of two key contributors in that game makes a lot of sense to me. I'm happy that Njoku fits in this cash game build. And yeah, we'll move on to Tennessee and Denver. I don't think we're going to spend much time on this. 42.5 total. The Titans obviously get Cam Ward. It's going to be interesting to see there. They have a very mean defensive line there, stopping the run. That's kind of what their defense MO should be, is stopping the run. Key departures from last year's team were Harold Landry, who's a stud, Jerome Baker, Chidobe Awuzie on the secondary, I guess, isn't anything to write home about, but that secondary probably couldn't afford that loss. I think L'Jarius Sneed's good to go. He's not on the injury report. No. Okay. All I see here is highly questionable is their offensive tackle, Dan Moore, who is a very good run blocker. So that'll be interesting. Obviously, Tajay Spears is on the Pauper IR for a little bit, so it should be the Tony Pollard show for a little bit. But is this a matchup we want to invest in against Denver on the road? Probably not. Yeah, Denver's defense was awesome last year and brought in Dre Greenlaw and Hufanga from the 49ers. So yeah, that's fucking awesome. They got an A+ rating for me in the offensive line. My offensive notes here. Same story with more weapons. Evan Ingram, RJ Harvey, J.K. Dobbins, and Dre Greenlaw is questionable. So I know they brought him in. It sounds like on the injury report right now, he's questionable. I don't think I have much interest in this game at all. The Broncos defense is the best play on the slate, probably at that position, but they're the most expensive. Not a game I really want to play Bo Nix. I'm not going to bet on Cam Ward week 1. Tony Pollard, if you just need a punt running back that's going to get 15 touches, he's probably your guy. I don't know what to expect from RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins. This is not a great matchup, in my opinion. I know their offensive line's awesome. Sean Payton running backs usually kick ass, but I think you beat these guys through the air. So yeah, a good sneaky spot for Cortland Sutton. He's 6,000 again. Similar to the Marvin Harrison conversation, I don't need this game to go nuts for him to score 20 points, which would get us over that 3x threshold. 6,000 salary times 3, we need 18 points. So I think he's a good play. Maybe someone I actually consider in cash. On the tight end side, Okonkwo, I'd rather have Juwan Howard here. And then Evan Ingram, 4,500. That's a pretty good price for someone that can go nuts. And I do want to play Tennessee through the air. So, yeah, honestly, Bo Nix is for 3% GPP viable for sure. It's just, are you going to just bring it back with Calvin Ridley and not do anything else with the Tennessee offense? Probably, but Calvin Ridley's probably going to get a lot of double coverage. So we'll see how, this guy, Io Manor or whatever, is getting a ton of steam in camp. Van Jefferson is not a guy anymore. So Tyler Lockett, I don't believe in either. So it'll be interesting. I think Tennessee can maybe keep this game close, but I think the pace is going to suck on both sides. So there we go. Moving on to additional in the afternoon slate here. We got San Fran being a 2.5 point road favorite at Seattle. Pretty low total here. Going to the 49ers. Clay Kubiak is now the offensive coordinator. He's kind of been, the Kubiak, Shanahan, guys have always been outside zone run scheme. So, I don't think we're going to see much change at all from the 49ers side of offense here. Some key losses on defense. So the 49ers defense is a shell of its former self. They lost Leonard Floyd, Dre Greenlaw, Devondre Campbell, Javon Hargrave, Deshaun Gibson. Obviously, we talked about Hufanga going to the Broncos. He's gone and did not bring in much to offset those losses. So it's just the 49ers. I bet their win total under. I think I got a 9.5 at -110 earlier in the summer. I don't think this is a good team. But I do think, I trust Kyle Shanahan that they're going to put up points. They're going to fight. This may be a good team that we go back and forth stacks with because their defense is low-key likely going to give up a ton of points. So quarterbacks, Brock Purdy, 3.7% own. That's nice. I don't mind him. I think he's potentially cash viable. I would like a little bit more on the receiver side of things from him. Sam Darnold, 1%. I think it's a GPP play. If you like this game, Vegas obviously doesn't expect a ton. But you could play Sam Darnold and Jackson Smith and Njigba. I'm not playing Cooper Kupp. Running back with McCaffrey and Pearsall or McCaffrey and Juwan Jennings, whatever. But the game's very stackable. Should be condensed target shares, which we like to see in DFS. Christian McCaffrey, 24% owned. So he was right there with Chase Brown. Yeah. I don't know if 7,300. If he is healthy, I don't know how long it'll last, but 7,300 is probably the lowest we're going to see from him if he is still getting that crazy workload. Can we fit him in the cash game lineup? Yeah. Ibuka was getting crazy props and getting a lot of ownership, so that'll help us save some money. 5,300. What does that give us? Debo. No, I'm not playing Debo in cash. Tournament play. Olave. So that's just is Jaden Daniels worth it? Or do we just go to Drake May? And then can I get Nico Collins? Motherfucker, I can't. I really want Nico in cash. Yeah, so the whole situation with McCaffrey kind of kills my vibe in cash. So I think no matter what, I'm playing Brian Thomas Jr. and Ted McMillan. Right, because 6,200 at receiver. Oh, let's move Nico up because I don't think I have to force Brian Thomas Jr. at 6,800, do we? I know the field is so that we can get different in cash with one guy. I could eat the chalk and James Conner. Cortland Sutton. I don't know. That's not bad. We'd flex McCaffrey. I don't know. So I don't know if Christian McCaffrey is going to be a staple in my cash games at that ownership. I don't know if it's either him or Chase Brown. I got to make a decision on one. I don't think I want to play both because I really do want to play Jaden Daniels at quarterback. So yeah, Kenneth Walker, GPP play for me for sure at 5,900. I know Charbonnet is getting a ton of love too. I do think we'll see some of him. So I'm not married to Kenneth Walker. In July, I was absolutely married to Kenneth Walker when pricing first came out, or late July, early August, whenever it was. The ownership's great. He's a game breaker. This defense probably weaker through the secondary than it is against the run. But yeah, Kenneth Walker with a Kubiak system. Clint Kubiak is their offensive coordinator. So the family Kubiak's calling the shots here in this game. Mike McDowell's still the coach there, but yeah, Clint Kubiak is now the offensive coordinator for the Seahawks. I forgot to talk about that. Ayuk's on the pup. Juwan Jennings likely in terms of injuries here. Let's go to wide receivers. Holy shit. All right. So let's start by salary. Jackson Smith and Jigba, no one's playing. I'm interested to see how he does on the outside. I think he's a stud and just going to get it done either way. Cooper Kupp's probably likely just stuck in the slot, and that's all he is right now. I have no interest in Cooper Kupp. Not a ton of interest in Juwan Jennings. Hasn't really done any practice at all. Ricky Pearsall at that ownership is pretty wild. I know if Jennings was out, Ricky Pearsall is going to see 25% ownership at that price, but I'd rather have Ibuka, I think. And Seattle's going to hit hard. So, Pearsall, not a small dude by any means, but Seattle's defense is going to be very physical. So, I don't know. I like Pearsall still. Like, he may fit the cash game. It's just, with Jennings back, I don't think that's a necessary evil I need to take. Then it's like, do I want Ted McMillan, Ibuka, 2 rookies in cash week 1? Probably not, with Pearsall, who's kind of like a rookie and a half. Only played a few games last year. That gets Jaden Daniels back in. And it gets me McCaffrey. So I'm not going double 49er in cash. But what does that do? 4,700. We already have Ibuka and Tet. Yeah, it's tough. This is definitely not going to be it. So I don't know. I got to figure it out. But I think for cash, I'm pretty set on, I want to try to get Nico Collins. So that is probably going to be my Fab 5. We could take the defense out. I always did the Fab 5, but Win Daily, Chase Brown, Nico Collins, Tet McMillan, Ibuka, Njoku. I probably need to get Brian Thomas Jr. in there because I am afraid that he may go. I don't think he's going to go nuts if they don't pass the ball deep and they play slow. I don't know. That's a ballsy fade, but I'm fading it in GPP, so it's kind of a hedge to play him in cash. But yeah. So sorry about the rant. George Kittle, probably the best tight end play on the slate. I would rather have him than David Njoku in general, but for $1,100 less, Njoku's in a great positive or passing script environment. George Kittle should have a monster year until Brandon Ayuk comes back. And even then, George Kittle's a fucking beast. Defense, I'm okay with both. I'm not playing the 49ers defense. I have no interest in them at 2,900. I'd rather have the Seahawks for 25. Moving on to our last 2 games here. Total of 47. I bet the under. I think this one opened at like 49.5 or 48.5. So I'm glad I'm on the right side of closing line value there, but as we know, that doesn't always mean shit. John Morton going to be the play caller for the Lions now with Ben Johnson gone. Their defense is just always going to be Dan Campbell, crazy shit. Obviously, Aaron Glenn's gone too, but attack the quarterback. They picked up Vontae Maddox and DJ Reed to kind of bolster that secondary. I do think this defense can wreak havoc. I don't expect a ton from the Packers week 1. Jaden Reed's highly questionable. Nate Hobbs, highly questionable too. So I think the Lions do have a good chance of winning this game. And they are a 2-point dog. I'm going to take the Lions, I think. I am concerned with Ben Johnson leaving, but I'm not. I know Matt LaFleur is a great fucking coach, but I am not impressed with the Packers right now. We'll see. Maybe Matthew Golden's a world beater and they can control the clock with Josh Jacobs. I just think the Lions defense is finally healthy. Obviously Hutch is back. Like, they should bring a lot of pain to the opposition offensive line. I'm sure John Morton's going to bring in some wild formations, just like Ben Johnson, try to think he's the smartest guy in the room now that Ben's gone. And some kill shots I wrote, but they're going to miss Frank Ragnow on the offensive line. Very interested to see how the running back split goes with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Everything we're hearing is Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get the reins and just go. No interest in either of these quarterbacks. I don't think that this game is a shootout. I think this is one Detroit can win. For the Packers, obviously nothing like crazy departure-wise, like Jair Alexander left, but Jair Alexander hasn't played football in years. Just a cornerback, a shutdown corner that doesn't play corner because he's always fucking hurt. Micah Parsons, he obviously heard all about that. So huge acquisition from them. And Nate Hobbs from the Raiders is big for them, but he is hurt. So I don't know. He's definitely not as talented as Jair Alexander. So it's not like he's there to fill the void that Jair left, because Jair left that void 2 years ago when he quit playing football. But it's going to be an offensive focus around the run. And let's go with these running backs. Josh Jacobs, 15% ownership. I have zero interest at all. He's probably a guy that's not going to leave the field. But again, at that price range, let's go to running backs. I'd rather have Jonathan Taylor. I don't know if Kyron against Houston is where I want to go. I'd probably rather have James Conner and Chuba Hubbard and Kenneth Walker. So I'm not playing Jacobs. It is a fair price for how good he ended the year last year. Let's see what his points were. He was going nuts at the end. Yeah, 21. Not nuts. This is kind of leading up to the fantasy playoffs. Weeks 11 through 16, when we really need to win our matchups in seasonal, he was going fucking nuts. So, yeah, his price, 67, is a discount. We haven't seen that in quite some time. But I don't think this is a great matchup for him. Jahmyr Gibbs at 5% ownership, I am very, very interested in. Let's see how that fits my GPP build. Let's go to Russ. I'll put in Eckler still. I'll stick to the fucking joke that's probably going to become a reality. I'm going to stick to the Packers defense fucking sucking. So, Packers offense, I'm sorry. So, I'm going to pair Gibbs with the Lions D. We got to get Neighbors in there. 5,700. I don't know if I'll go Njoku in tournaments too at that ownership, but I do think he's kind of foolproof here. 6,000 left. Can we fit Jamar Chase there? Yeah, we could. Yeah, there's a lot you could do. So I'm not telling you to believe in Russ, but you can get a lot done. And Jahmyr Gibbs at 5%. Yeah, I'm going to be probably 20% exposed. So I'm going to go 4x a field on Jahmyr Gibbs in 150s. And probably, as we stand today, Bijan Robinson or Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be my main running back in my GPP lineup. Honestly, what I may do, I love the early only slate too. So if you guys don't look at that, like, because again, DraftKings lures you in with the Millie Maker, it's only on the main slate. Go, like, if you don't like the variance of fading guys like Jahmyr Gibbs and, Christian McCaffrey, just fucking go play the early only slate because you can build some great lineups. Personally, I will tell you right now, this week, my main investments are in the early only slate, and that is where I will be pounding the shit out of Bijan Robinson. And in the main slate, I may go to that Jahmyr Gibbs 5%. But we'll see how, the Friday practice report shakes out here. I'm on Ross St. Brown, 7,100. Yeah, it is what it is. Kills zone defense. I'm sure the Packers still going to play a ton of zone. I just don't see the Packers pushing the pace a ton here. So we'll see what Matthew Golden's made of. I think that's an interesting GPP play. JMO can always break a slate, but with Jaden Reed, highly questionable and going through a Liz Frank injury, right? So he's whatever in the foot. So he's going to have a broken bone in his foot, it sounds like, all year. Romeo Dobbs, no. I think he fucking sucks. Wicks is, questionable too. I think Wicks was limited yesterday. This is Thursday, so Wednesday. So I would assume he plays. But yeah, Tucker Kraft probably 12%. I guess he's one of their only healthy pass catchers who's been in this offense for quite some time. Let's see the tight end ownership. Is he like second? Third. Brenton Strange is fourth. Fuck Brenton Strange. Trey McBride stud. I feel like I didn't talk about him enough, but 6,200 fair price. He should be closer to 68, 69, 7K. I'd rather roll the dice on Tyler Warren if I'm sacking that game than play Tucker Kraft. Brock Bowers has no ownership. That seems stupid. So you definitely just, if you can pay up, go there. I'd probably rather have Tucker Kraft than Kyle Pitts, not going to lie. Dalton Schultz, I don't hate. We'll get into that game. Evan Ingram, 2%. I do think we beat Tennessee through the air. Sam Laporta, 5K. I'd rather have him than Tucker Kraft. I'd probably rather pay down to Juwan Jennings and Tucker Kraft. So again, zero organization out of me today. I'm just all over the fucking place. Defense, not paying $2,900 for the Packers. I will definitely consider a lot of 2,700 lines. Last game, let's get after it. 43.5 total. Texans, D'Amico Ryans. Obviously, Nick Caley is now the offensive coordinator with Bobby Sloak was gone, right? That was their guy last year. He's a McVay tree guy and was a Patriots tight end coach before that. So offensively, I think we're just going to see a ton of passing, and they have zero run game. Who are their running backs right now? That's going to start. Like Woody Marks, I guess, was a thing. Damian Pierce is probably the RB1. I mean, they probably bring in Nick Chubb to get him a lot of work too. That's gross. I want Nico Collins in cash. I think that's a staple. Defensively, it should be filthy. I don't think they really had any. I didn't note any key departures. Injury-wise for the Texans, Mixon's obviously on the pup list. Christian Kirk is highly questionable. Cam Robinson, One of their best tackles, so does help the run game, and he's a very good pass blocker. Should be good to go. He missed Wednesday with an illness, so everything I saw on Twitter this morning says that he should be okay. For the Rams, not a lot of changes. They brought in Ahkello Witherspoon to add to a very bad secondary. I don't think Ahkello Witherspoon's going to change a ton. They did lose Joe Noteboom and Jonah Jackson. I think got traded to the Bears, right? So great for the Bears, but they did do a good job replacing that. Alaric Jackson is a very good offensive lineman. They paid him and brought in Coleman Shelton, the center. So I think it's basically the same offense we saw last year. Very interested to see how ownership and stuff shakes out here. I don't know. The total's 43.5. I could see both of these teams scoring, but dude, Danielle Hunter and this Texans defensive line is just so fucking sick. So I trust D'Amico too. I don't know. I don't think this game shoots out, but it certainly could. Kyron Williams, sub 10%. The dude is, like Bijan Robinson, going to get 20 touches. So I won't talk you off that. Like Genty, probably a guy that gets 20 touches. So I feel like he's going to be kind of a forgotten man and land in that 5% range. I'm not touching any other running back in this game. Moving on. Puka. Stafford, it sounds like he's good to go. Could get a ton of targets. I get that. I'd rather have Nico Collins for 200 less. Otherwise, if you want to stack this game, you know where the targets are going. It's Puka and Devontae Adams. That's about it. Nico is probably getting 15 targets from CJ Stroud. That is his boy. Christian Kirk, especially if he misses. Like, I don't think we see much from Jaden Higgins or Jalen Noel. They're going to play a lot, but even if the Rams tried double covered Nico, it's not stopping him. I think Nico has to be a staple in the cash game. Yeah, he's in. I got to figure this out, though, with Brian Thomas and Jaden Daniels or Drake May. I'm not playing Trevor fucking Lawrence in cash. We already covered that. That's where the public's going, though. Dalton Schultz, the tight ends here are gross. I did bet Dalton Schultz over 2.5 receptions, minus 108 on FanDuel. Defensive-wise, Texans I thought would be like 20% owned, especially with like Stafford being questionable coming in this game. So that's a favorite punt D I think I have. Let's see defense ownership in general. Very spread out right now. So keep checking out DFS Army and look at the domination station. This will be updated every day. I'm being told the Giants is the highest percent owned defense. Yeah, no way. The field's not doing that against Jaden Daniels. 49ers, I hope people play them. I can't imagine they do shit. Seahawks, I get. Lions, I get. Titans, people are just paying down. I would not do that. I don't think they're going to create much pressure and get sacks or turnovers. So, yeah, their game script there is to try to play slow and keep that one close. I don't see them scoring many points, but they're 2,200, so people just punt it. But thank you so much for tuning in. Core plays will be on the DFS Army cheat sheet, which you will see here. Go to cheat sheets. I mean, there's a bunch of them. You could start by, the Thursday Night Showdown from DFS Up North. A lot of guys here. I think you got to scroll. Yeah, Stix picks single entry rankings. That's kind of the main part of my NFL DFS in general, is single entry stuff. If you want to talk MME, and there's plenty of guys in the chat that are great at MME. I will not claim to be a great MME player. I hand built 150 fucking lineups to fill that $5 Millie Maker. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, it looks like the new guy. You got to scroll a bit to get to me. So there are a lot of cheat sheets, but happy to help in Discord, on Twitter at StixPicks. My betting sheet is just a Google sheet. So if you're interested in getting on that, I'm probably going to make a play on Juwan Johnson too. I got to kind of see what the market is with him. But really excited for this season. I think it's going to be a great week one. Ton of great resources here at DFS Army. But thank you so much for the support. Every show will not be this long. I'm sorry. I took like 7 minutes talking about my past with Win Daily Sports. But I thank you all for the support, and have a great day.